Well, good afternoon, and thank you for coming, braving the weather. Welcome to all those in the audience, and welcome to those watching us from the live stream. This is the 5th educational clinic organized by FinanceMalta, the public-private partnership responsible for corporate affairs on behalf of the Malta Financial Centre. My name is Bruno Lecuyer, and I'm Head of Business Development. Do take time to deliberate what you will hear today, but when the time for action arrives, stop thinking and go in. Finally, all that's left for me is to hand over to today's guest moderator, Joseph Ajus. Joseph is Head of Custody and Fiduciary Services of HSBC Bank Malta PLC. He joined HSBC's funds management subsidiary in 2000 and has held senior positions in investment management, fund administration and custody. He's an active committee member of the Institute of Financial Services, the Malta Funds Industry Association, and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. So, Joseph, it's over to you.
Firstly, I would like to thank Bruno and his team at FinanceMalta for the support they have given us, the Malta Funds Industry Association, in the setting up of this educational clinic. I would also like to thank the Malta Stock Exchange for allowing us to host this event at their premises today. The subject of today's educational clinic is the Alternative Investment Fund Manager Directive, practical implication and its impact on Malta. As we all know, the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive will regulate the activities of entities engaged in the management and administration of funds that are not UCITS funds. And it also lays down rules for marketing of these funds to professional investors within the EU. That said, unlike the UCITS directive, the AIFMD does not directly introduce European legislation for alternative investment funds. Instead, it introduces an authorization and supervisory regime for alternative investment fund managers managing funds in the European Union. The new regime will capture EU AIFMs, non-EU AIFMs managing EU AIFs, non-EU AIFMs who market their AIFs in the EU. Moreover, AIFs will be required to have a depository having custody of their assets and having a degree of governance oversight which is similar to UCITS. In today's educational clinic, our guest speaker is Mr. Paul Ellis from HSBC Securities, who will deliver a presentation on the practical aspects of AIFMD and how it impacts the AIFM as well as various service providers to funds. He will examine how this regulation, which was born out of the financial crisis, will entail further obligations, risks, and duties to be undertaken by various service providers. Clarity in these regulations is essential, and if I can quote a financial commentator's comments to central and country regulators, if there is ambiguity, you will not get out of the crisis. Mr. Paul Ellis, Head of Product Solution Europe for HSBC, has over 20 years' experience in financial services, and he has occupied various senior roles with a number of organizations, notably on product development and product strategy. He is managing for HSBC Securities the AIFMD product change program, ensuring that HSBC and global client implications of AIFMD are fully analyzed and implemented into HSBC operations across Europe. Against this background, I am sure that Paul will give us a good insight of how AIFMD will impact investors and fund services providers, notably managers and custodians. Following Paul's presentation, there will be a Q&A session, and this will be followed by a panel discussion. Joining us in this afternoon's panel are Dr. Andre Zerafa from Ganado and Associates, Mr. Puneet Gupta of HSBC Securities Services, Mr. Joseph Camilleri of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Dr. Andre Zerava is a partner at Ganado and Associates. He has extensive experience in the fund industry and he chairs the Investment Business Committee of the Malta Institute of Financial Services Practitioners. Mr. Puneet Gupta is the head of HSBC Securities Services in Malta. Puneet has undertaken various roles within the global and banking and markets in Asia. Mr. Joseph Camilleri is the asset management leader of PricewaterhouseCoopers in Malta. Joseph, too, has extensive experience in the financial services field, notably in asset management and private equity. I would like now to invite Paul to deliver his presentation.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invite from FinanceMalta and the Malta Funds Industry Association to speak today. I'm delighted to do it. I do have to start, though, with an apology. I am an Irishman, and unfortunately I've managed to bring our summer weather to Malta in November. So thank you for bearing through the rain to get here today. As Joe mentioned, my role within HSBC Security Services currently is to basically collaborate with colleagues in HSBC and with clients to try and dimension the impact of AIFMD, both to us in terms of our regulated businesses, but equally to our clients, because naturally our clients outsource a lot of their operations to HSBC Security Services, and therefore the way in which we provide those going forward may well change. So I'm not a lawyer. My background is more in operations, so when the question sessions come around, I'll have to defer back to the lawyers for any legal questions. But very much we're trying to deal with the practical implications of AIFMD, which is the topic I've been asked to comment upon today. Everybody will appreciate that AIFMD has been talked about at length in the industry for some time now, and a 30-minute slot to try and summarise the practical implications is a particular challenge, but I'll do my best and really would encourage questions at the end, because naturally to cover so much in 30 minutes, I can only really gloss the surface, and the more questions obviously I can answer for you, the better. Okay, so like any program manager, where do you start with AIFMD in terms of assessing the impact? Certainly the way we did it was we looked and try and size the scale of the change. So, and as we all know, AIFMD is not confined to hedge funds, so it draws on a very large universe of investment strategies and managers, so we've certainly had to look right across our European sites and figure out what types of funds and clients are caught in the net. So having done that, obviously, you then need to start looking at the dimensions of who's in the EU, not in the EU, from a manager perspective and equally from a funds perspective. So I'm guessing in terms of the practical implications, the vast majority of people will have already done that or attempted to do that. Of course, one of the challenges that everybody finds right across the value chain is kind of getting to a final stage of the regulation. Now, I'm sure everyone in the room has seen various drafts of that, but in terms of putting in concrete plans, obviously it's always much easier to do that when you've got the final rules. So on our kind of timeline chart here, it shows level 2 arriving in Q4. I'm not going to speculate on that because obviously everybody's keen to get it, and hopefully we'll get it by then. But the key date, obviously, first date of being ready in terms of operationally for everybody is obviously July next year. And that, for us is obviously our key target date. But the project obviously does have to roll on into 2015 because that's the date when either our managers or funds that aren't in the EU can opt in. But by 2018, when the project will ultimately wrap up, obviously any of our global clients who are selling to European investors will be in the net. So that's how we've sort of tried to sort of plan it and time it out. And I just really wanted to kind of cover that just to kind of set the scene of how we've entered the impact assessment.